What the movie The Hunger Games and the Chinese government have to do with the military coup in Myanmar? Let's find that out together. Hello and welcome to the Candy Planet. Lately it feels like the world is on fire, and most likely it is. But do not worry, I'm here to help you make sense of what the heck is going on. And this week, we'll talk about what's happening with the military takeover of the government in Myanmar and how a symbol used in a Hollywood movie is having real-world impact. But before we get started, do all the YouTube things, like, subscribe, and turn on the bell notifications so you never miss a video. Now, let's get started. Let's start with the basics, so we're all caught up in what's going on. The situation in Myanmar started getting pretty serious 2 months ago, on February 1st, the day when the parliament was set to hold its first official session after the fall elections, when the National League for Democracy, the NLD, won the majority of seats. But the military refused to accept the results of these elections, detaining leaders of the party, including the NLD's president, Aung San Suu Kyi. From there, the military quickly started taking over every aspect of social life in the country, like infrastructure, the media, and also suspended phone access and flights in the country. It's not a good sign at all for democracy in the region, especially because later in that same month, what were peaceful protests against the situation turned into deadly confrontations when 2 armed protesters were killed by security forces, including a 16-year-old boy. There was also a general strike, but with each passing day, the military turned more and more violent against the protesters. According to human rights groups, the military has already killed over 550 people and detained and tortured more than thousands, and among those dead, more than 40 children. So the situation there is ongoing, but I wanted to talk to you guys about 2 aspects that pique my curiosity. Because I always find interesting how communities adopt certain symbols in these times of crisis, and I also think it's important that we understand who is set to gain anything with this madness. So let's do one case at a time. I started seeing on the internet people being photographed on the protests making this gesture. As a nerd, I immediately recognized it as the rebel symbol from the Hunger Games movies. It's called the 3-finger salute, and it was first used in 2014 when the movie Mockingjay Part 1 was coming out. That's also when a military coup happened in Thailand, and since then it became a stand-in for solidarity and resistance across the Southeast Asia. And just like in the movie, the crackdown of people using the symbol has been incredibly severe, with people being detained and tortured just by showing this in public. And now, speaking of that geographic region, let's move our eyes to China. And what would they have to gain by supporting this coup to begin with? The Chinese government refused to call the military coup a coup. And the answer to that comes from real estate. Location, location, location. China has no access to the Indian Ocean. The only 2 access points they have to those waters are through Pakistan, a strategic partner of China, and through the Burmese port in Myanmar. And I think you now know where I'm going with this. That strategic need to access the pipeline of the Burmese port are enough for governments like the Chinese and even the Russians to force the UN Security Council not to take stronger actions in the region, especially because if sanctions are held internationally against Myanmar, that could play well for the Chinese. That could repeat their support to the military like they had already done in 1988, when Myanmar was isolated internationally and the Chinese took advantage of that situation. So closing this argument, I just think it's very important for us to understand that China does not want to have any protests happening in the region. They do not want anyone getting thoughts like people could overthrow a government, those revolutionary type of ideas. And also, whenever you see this symbol, you will know that there are people out there still fighting for silly ideals like democracy, for example. That's it for today. I again thank you so much for taking the time and discussing these topics with me. If you ever wanted to beam your brain into a different world, you're not alone. Come join us at Candy Planet. You will be able to join our mailing list and get updated every single time we post new content. We'll go for now, but please be safe wear a mask, and get vaccinated. E para o meu papai, te amo.